Okay, good morning to all. Welcome to the first of the IISER Mohali Outreach Talk series. This being the first talk, we have had a great response on Zoom, on YouTube. So we thank you all. We hope this enthusiasm continues. The IISER Mohali Outreach Talks were started with two major goals. One, of course, is to introduce all the new exciting research that is happening around the world. The second major goal is to introduce IISER Mohali and its researchers to the world. So this talk series is expected to act as a window to IISER Mohali so that the exciting research that happens in IISER Mohali can be conveyed to the rest of the world. There have been many colleagues in outreach that have helped to put this talk series together. My sincere thanks to all of them. My special sincere thanks to Dr. Mahua and Dr. Amit, who have worked a lot to put these things together. General instructions, if you may, about questions. I request all of you to hold your questions till the end of the talk. Since there is Zoom and YouTube, we'll be taking questions in both these formats. At the end of the talk, in Zoom, please use the raise hand function, and whoever has raised hands, we will invite you to ask questions. On the YouTube channel, you can use the comment section. We have someone monitoring the YouTube, and we will take the questions from the comment section also. This talk is being recorded. This is for your information. I request all of you to mute yourselves and please turn off your video. Okay. Today we have Dr. Parth Chauhan, who will be giving the talk. Dr. Parth is an assistant professor in the Humanities and Social Sciences Department of IISER Mohali. Dr. Parth did his BA from in anthropology in Rutgers in USA. He did his MA in anthropology, archaeology from the Deccan College in India. Then he did his PhD in archaeology and prehistory from the University of Sheffield. He then did a postdoc at USA, and he has also been a Fulbright Fellow at the Deccan College. His research interests are vast, as this slide shows. His main expertise is in the technology of stone tools. He looks at South Asia specifically in relation to the rest of the world. He is working in India, looking at the peopling of central India, especially in the Narmada Valley. He's also interested in not just humans, but also other vertebrates and vertebrate fossils. As an example, he and his group have described what is probably the youngest fossil hippo from India very recently. He's also a very keen and very popular teacher. He teaches a very special course. He teaches many things, but a very special course that he teaches is called Stones, Bones, and Chromosomes. So that tells you the interdisciplinary nature of his work. So we are very happy to have Parth with us. Parth, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Prasad. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to you and the outreach team and IISER Mohali for giving me this opportunity. And thank you everyone for joining the talk today. So my topic is basically talking about different prehistoric evidences and current debates, current topics, broadly speaking, globally and in India, and also specific topics that my lab members are working on, which includes PhD students, BS, MS students, and postdocs. So just first, before I get into my lab's work, I would like to just give a background to human evolution in Africa, global scenario, and then what's the big questions for India and why India is important for understanding global evolution. So as we know, our story starts in Africa. We have a lot of fossils, mostly coming from Northern Africa, Eastern Africa, and Southern Africa. And there's a historical reason for this is because research bias, because of colonial occupation, and then geological preservation, and then specific sites and regions constantly yield very well-preserved sites, including human fossils. So there's more attention here because of the success rate. But now fossils are being found outside of Africa as well, and changing the story of human evolution. So we have a lot of species, a lot of different genera, and we've tried to pinpoint which were in our lineage and which were not, and why some species became extinct. So this is just a very broad family tree, which is often debated upon. There's no consensus between scientists. And some people agree about the configuration of these trees, but some people also say that different species should not be named as they are. So just to give you a broad overview, human evolution in a nutshell, and looking at the timeline, I would like you to note the intervals of different events. For example, beginning of bipedalism, walking on two legs 7 million years ago. Earliest stone tools, 3.3 million years ago. Earliest evidence of butchery, 2.6. Earliest evidence of genus Homo, 2.4 million. First exit out of Africa is at least 2.2, maybe could be earlier. Oldest evidence of fire, 1.4 million. Neanderthals evolved around 350,000 years ago in Europe. Homo sapiens follows soon after in Africa. And then our species leaves Africa multiple times, starting from 210,000 years ago. It reaches Europe first at the moment, based on current evidence. And then it reaches Levant, reaches China, various places. And it reaches Europe, in fact, multiple times. And then there's a beginning of symbolic behavior, which is beads, like ornamentation, rock art, engravings. All these things gradually start 100,000 years onwards. And paintings roughly start around 60, 50,000 years ago. And then from 30,000 years onwards, we have been the only species on the planet. Everything else becomes extinct. In fact, the last couple of species that overlap with Homo sapiens are Neanderthals and also Homo floresiensis. And then 10,000 years ago, the Neolithic starts, which is the beginning of domestication in agriculture. So just a very broad timeline to give you an idea. And I'd like to highlight that things like meat eating, use of fire, use of stone tools, all these things kind of converge together and lead to bigger brains, more adaptability, long distance adaptations, dispersals. So everything ties in together soon after 2.6 and 2.0 million years. I would also like to highlight that tool use extends beyond humans. Monkeys, apes, they also have a long history of tool use. Only question is, we don't know how old it is. These behaviors vary from region to region. Monkeys in South America, apes such as chimpanzees, for example, in Africa, they use tools. It can be for termite fishing, cracking open nuts, various functions, even use of spears to target prey. The question is, why didn't these species evolve further if they were using tools? So there are many, many factors affecting evolution and not just tool use. But the fact that tool use started and then it continued with the human lineage shows that it was an important factor for becoming human. But these species also use tools. And I would like to highlight that other animals also use tools, especially birds, otters. And another broad timeline of tool use, in fact, and why we call it the Stone Age is because stone has survived. They were probably using a lot of other materials such as wood, bone, ivory, antler, but stone has survived. So we have given the name Stone Age. And so we have the earliest evidence of 3.3 million years ago, Lomekrian technology, very simple technology. And then there's a gap between 3.3 million and 2.6 million in the geological records. We don't have any evidence of archaeology at the moment. It's not been found or it wasn't there. We don't know exactly. But from 2.6 million onwards, the record is more or less continuous. We have Older One technology, Acheulean technology, Middle Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic, and Microlithic. So what happens is from 1.7 million years onwards, there's multiple dispersals within Africa and out of Africa. There's technologies mixed sometimes. Different species are using them over time. Different species are innovating new technologies. So it's not that one technology ends and it's replaced completely by a new one. some of the elements from past technologies continue, and new products, new tool types are added. And this is also tying in with cognition, meat eating, symbolic behavior, dispersals out of Africa, and basically adaptations to interesting and unique environments. Now, if you notice, from the Acheulean onwards, roughly 1.7 million onwards, the tools become smaller and smaller and more specialized. And by the time Homo sapiens appears, the tools are very complex. Lavalva technology, such as prepared cores, for example, upper pelvic blade technology, and also microthick technology. The earliest evidence of hafting and projectiles, such as spears, for example, appears around this time, 400,000 years ago, 500,000 years ago. And you can see on the left, we have timeline of invention, but on the right, we have timeline for dispersals. So out of Africa 1, actually now it seems to be taking place beyond 2 million. And we don't know, maybe there were more than one dispersal for that technology, because older one is so simple, it's hard to say whether there were multiple or only one single dispersal. But then after that, we have regional innovations. So once older populations and technologies being established, there's different evolutionary tracks going on outside of Africa as well. And I would like to also say that human evolution is basically linked with environmental change. So we're looking at climate, fauna, flora, and also changes in other resources, such as availability of rocks, for example. So there are many ice ages in the past, not just a few major ones, but there are many ice ages in the past. All of them were varying intensities and durations, and they're called basically glacial interglacial periods. So our goal as specialists in human origin studies or paleoanthropologists is how did environmental changes over time affect biological evolution, affect technologies, and associated behaviors. So this is our main goal for research. So let me give you an example how technology can change because of climate change. So let's say that we have a open grasslands environment with a lot of large herbivores, large mammals, which are being hunted by humans using spear technology. So large mammals being hunted by large spears. And gradually, if there's climate change, something environment changes over time, we have basically increase in shrubs, increase in trees, grasslands are decreasing, and the animal life is also changing. So then maybe because the herbivores are decreasing, the technology is also reflecting that. So maybe less use of spears. And then gradually, it might turn into a forest environment with a lot of small mammals. So larger mammals over time have been replaced by small mammals. And then we have the beginning of bow and arrow technology. So this is just an example. I'm not saying that spears always led to bow and arrow technology, but this is an example of technological change because of climatic change and faunal change and floral change. In some places, they adapted and the technology did not change, even though climate changed. So different regions have different impacts and histories. And our sources of data come from various places for environmental reconstruction. It can be cave deposits, soil deposits, animal fossils, different cores like ice, sediments, plant fossils, historical records, many different sources we have. And we look at isotopic data from various sources. We look at the animal fossils and other proxies to reconstruct past environments. Sometimes it's very accurate and very well preserved, but sometimes we don't have enough data, so we cannot really reflect on the actual conditions in the past. Now, looking at the earliest dispersals, how did this happen? How did humans move within Africa and out of Africa? Around 3 million years onwards, there's a global cooling and drying event. So we have basically forests shrinking and then grasslands expanding. So these environmental parameters are affecting basically the herbivores. So there's an increase in migration of herbivores, as you can see different animals on the bottom. And that's leading to grassland expansion, herbivore migrations, followed by migrations of predators, scavengers, and of course hominins. And why hominins? Because they were not only hunting select animals, in the beginning they're actually scavenging meat. So scavenging behavior starts first, followed by hunting. So we have this chain reaction of events because of climate change, floral change, faunal change, and then human behavior as well. And of course, keep in mind that in Africa, at a certain point, as hominid populations increased, there was also competition between different hominin groups. So to avoid competition also, there was dispersal. So the earliest evidence we have at the moment out of Africa, 2 million years, and then 1.8 million years in Asia, in West Asia, and then 1.5 million in Southeast Asia. So you can see in the Southeast Asia, you see a lot of islands. How did they get to those islands? Is because at one time, there were no islands over there. There were mostly huge land masses. So there were, now sites are being found in Java, Sumatra, Flores. So all these islands at one time were connected as a huge landmass because of sea level fluctuations. As glaciers melted over time, the sea level rose, and then these islands basically emerged. So we have a huge landmass where hominins and animals came, and then they were trapped on the islands. And in some cases, there's evidence of hominins shrinking in size, hominins and other animals shrinking in size because of isolation on the islands. We don't have any idea at the moment what's going on in India. I'll talk about that. So once these early technologies, 2 million years ago, 1 million years ago, different technologies and populations became established all over the world, including Europe, Levant, Arabia, Asia, India. What happens is once these populations get established, they follow their own paths, evolutionary paths. So biological evolution, technological evolution starts happening in a parallel manner across the entire old world. So we have emergence of different species, Neanderthals in Europe, Homo sapiens in Africa, and then we also have the Chinese specimens, which are looking very similar. So morphologically, a lot of the hominins now are converging independently in a parallel manner. And also it's interesting how technology is following the same pattern. So we have very early appearance of this complex technology called the Walwa, or prepared core, which is the beginning of Middle Paleolithic, happening at the same time between, say, 500,000 and 300,000. And including India, it has one of the earliest evidences. And I'll talk about that separately after I finish the global record. So why is India important? It's because it links the old world. It links records from Africa, Europe, and Eastern Asia. And also stone tools were discovered here at the same time as in Europe in the 1800s for the first time. There's continuous occupation from at least 1.5 million R onwards, maybe earlier. It preserves technologies from all prehistoric phases. And there are numerous animal species which are now extinct, hippos and ostriches especially. But we don't know a lot about this region. Other regions have studied more. It's only in the last few decades that people have started focusing on India and parts of Asia. But we need a lot more research here, a lot more data. There's also a lack of adequate human fossils compared to other regions, and a lack of absolute dates. So we don't know the ages of different sites. So we cannot interpret the evidence without knowing the ages. So just now, these things have started coming up. And on the bottom right, you see the only known non-Homo sapien fossil known from central India. And we also have the largest land record of Toba eruption. For example, there was this volcano erupted multiple times in the past, located in Sumatra. But 74,000 years ago, it was a major eruption, and all this ash got deposited into the Indian subcontinent, and of course the intermediate seas. So we have these long sequences of deposits. And now the big question is whether there was an impact on fauna, on ecology, on flora, and of course the hominins. How did the ash deposits from Toba impact the populations in India? So this is the current big debate going on. And then we also have the highest diversity of human populations outside of Africa. One of the highest genetic diversities, in fact. So it shows that human populations have a very lengthy history outside of Africa in the Indian subcontinent. And you can see a lot of hunter-gatherer and tribal diversity, a lot of different ethnic groups, for example. So the question is, when do hominins first arrive in South Asia? This is debated, but some say 2.6 million, some say 2 million. Sites have been reported from Pakistan, from India, but it's not clear. All this evidence is very ambiguous. But if you look at it from the most reliable evidence and the most non-controversial evidence, the earliest record of arrival is 1.5 million from a site called Atrambakkam. And this has been reported by Dr. Shanti Pappu and her colleagues. And this is showing that soon after invention of the Acheulean at 1.7 million or 1.8, it reaches India very rapidly, 1.5 million. But this gray area that you see on the map is basically the homeland of the Acheulean. But now we have new sites very similar to the Acheulean found in Asia. So the question is now, are these sites Acheulean, or do they represent an independent invention over similar technology? So this is another debate going on. And a lot of archaeologists are working in Eastern Asia and finding new sites. And India plays a role in this because if the Asian ones are Acheulean, maybe India was a corridor for cultural movement, or maybe they went through Central Asia to get to Eastern Asia. We need to find out exactly the route of dispersal and impact of different zones. And what were the causes of animal extinction? Climate, was it humans? This is also another major question. For example, we have evidence of ostriches in India from at least 70,000 years ago onwards, and they become extinct in the Holocene around 10,000 years ago. The home range is mostly northwest and central India. It's associated with prehistoric sites suggesting broad ecological overlap with humans. And dispersal of ostriches and modern humans into India may have happened at the same time. So both of them may have adapted to arid environments. In ostrich eggs are used for food. They can be used as containers. They were made into beads. They were made into engraved products. So you can see how humans could have targeted the eggs for multiple purposes, and then the populations of ostriches declined and then become extinct. So it's possible that climate played a role as well, but also humans, because we find a lot of ostrich eggshells at prehistoric sites. Same thing with the hippo. We have evidence of hippo going back several million years in the Symbolics, for example. But what happened in peninsular India also is different. So different regions of India, you have different history, geological histories, different climatic histories. So recently we dated this hippo fossil from central India to 15,000 years ago. Now, whether humans played a role or not is not clear because we don't find evidence of hippo butchery sites at the moment, but it's possible that expanding human populations might have marginalized these creatures. So gradually they got marginalized and then they become extinct. Also, maybe climate played a big role, or environment as water bodies shrank and the arid zone increased. So we're looking at, in our study area, we're trying to look at evidence of butchery. Is there evidence of butchery, for example, of certain animals by humans? Is there evidence of natural death events because of climate change, like drought or a flash flood or some vegetation changes across the landscape? So what factors are affecting the extinction of species as well as the appearance of new species of different animals? So here's just looking at different fossil sites that we found in central Narmada Valley. So trying to understand how many of them are associated archaeologically, how many of them are natural fossil sites, how are these animals dying? Is there a pattern of death, for example, a certain horizon or a certain time period? We're trying to understand basically how these things happened. In central India and Narmada Valley are very rich in fossils, just like Shivalik Hills. This is how stone tools are found, sometimes in isolation. You can see here the hand axe embedded in the sediments, Narmada Valley, and also smaller hand axes, again, embedded in the sediments. So this is how we find sites from sections serving along the river, for example, because the river dissects the sediments. So with these fossils, these artifacts are basically exposed. This is how we find sites. So some places, there are very few. Some places, they can be very rich. For example, Isampur, which is a quarry site in Karnataka, this shows that how hominins were extracting the rocks, the limestone slabs, from the bedrock, and then manufacturing the tools, using the tools. So all the phases of manufacture, then use, and then discard, everything is preserved at the site. So you have very rich sites, and sometimes you have very sparse occurring sites where you have low density of artifacts. And then another question is, when do Homo sapiens first arrive in India? Fossils show that they arrive at least 38,000 years ago. We have fossils from Sri Lanka in India. That's the earliest fossil evidence. But then we have these microlithic technologies appearing around 48,000 in central India, Sri Lanka. So this is clearly belonging to Homo sapiens. But then some have argued for an older arrival. Some are saying that they came with middle Paleolithic technology before 77,000, maybe 100,000 years ago, maybe 150,000 years ago. It's not clear exactly. But the problem is now that new discoveries are making this complicated. We have older middle Paleolithic technology going back to 385,000. So now the question is, who made the younger middle Paleolithic? Is it possible that all of it belongs to pre-Homo sapien populations? Or is it possible that the earlier middle Paleolithic belongs to another species in the later middle Paleolithic was brought in by Homo sapiens? We don't have any fossil evidence. We don't have any genetic evidence. So it's hard to pinpoint this. And keep in mind, there were several species that were contemporary with Homo sapiens between 300,000 years ago and 25,000 years ago. We have Erectus, Neanderthals, Naledi, Denisovans, Floresiensis. So different species were making different technologies. And sometimes the same species like Homo erectus or Neanderthals, they were making different technologies. And sometimes different species were making the same technology. So you have a lot of complex behaviors going on. The tool types, differences in typology, assemblage compositions reflect changes in environment, social interactions, new innovations. It could be a range of factors for change in technology and innovations. But basically, we cannot identify the species based only on technology, except maybe for the upper Paleolithic and microlithic technologies, which we know clearly that they're probably almost all made by Homo sapiens. What was the purpose and age of symbolic behavior? By symbolic behavior, I mean beads, like ornamentation, rock paintings, engravings. For example, here we have a site in central India, Narmada Valley, showing a rock shelter. And then the paintings in the top left and bottom right are enhanced using de-stress software. And then we also have examples of beads made from stone, from shell, from ostrich egg shell, showing symbolic behavior. The earliest beads appear in Levant, in Africa, over 100,000 years ago. And then we have this engraved specimen on the top center showing engraved geometric design on an eggshell from central India. So now getting to my lab's work, I'd like to highlight basically the locations, but also individual research topics. The locations are currently in different parts of India. We have work going on Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra. And I also have projects going on in Sudan as well, looking at early human dispersals from Africa and into other places. So here are all my lab members. Basically, we have PhD students, we have postdocs, and at any given time, we also have BS, MS students working with us, as could be summer interns, it could be doing fifth-year projects, various different topics. So we have, and I'll talk about their work individually, all of these people. So we have Nupur Tiwari, Vivek Singh, Ravindra Devra, Shashi Mehra, Akash Rathore, Jayshree Mazumdar, Yazad Pradewala, Rajesh Pujari, Anubhav Kaur, and Badur Singh. And all of them are using different approaches. Their topics are different. They're focusing on primate archaeology, landscape archaeology, looking at rock paintings, looking at the ages of specific sites, doing environmental reconstructions, studying human footprints, and stone tools. So you can see it's a very diverse group. We use diverse methods to understand and to answer different questions for human evolutionary studies. And the methods that we use include fieldwork, lab analysis, and experimental studies. So fieldwork can include surveys, excavations, documentation, as well as animal observation. Lab analysis will look at artifacts, fossils, doing geochemical studies like stable isotope analysis, or we could be doing the geochemistry of the pigments, and then looking at the dating. We need to do a lot of dating in India to understand the exact ages of sites. And then excavations, we also look at how we can understand methodology also, how we can improve our methodology, and then applying different softwares like dstretch, like GIS. So there's various different applications we use. And then as experimental studies, we replicate and utilize stone tools to understand how technology evolved. To understand a technology is you can understand it better by making it. So we have a lot of students now replicating stone technology as a part of their topics and sometimes as side topics. Now my work kind of overlaps with the group's work, and I'm collaborating with all of them at various levels. But I also have my own projects. For example, in Maharashtra, we're working on this site called Koroshi with the state department, state government of Maharashtra. So this is a site in Konkan, and it's showing that this cave occupation took place possibly much earlier than we thought. And it's showing evidence of Paleolithic tools as well as microlithic tools. So we have large artifacts, including points, choppers, scrapers, anvils, but then we also have smaller artifacts, as you can see in the bottom left. These are microliths. So whether these assemblages were contemporary or one is older, one is younger, we're trying to understand this. And this is an important zone because in Western India, you don't have that many Paleolithic sites actually. They kind of decrease in number because of ecology, for example. In Kerala, Northeast India, Ganga Plains, the extreme south of India, the prehistoric record is very, very sparse. So we're trying to fill these gaps basically and understand why human occupation took place at that time and not earlier. Our main project is the Narmada Basin Paleoanthropology Project in central India. And this is basically looking at human evolution through a long time span, at least 1 million years, maybe older, and understand faunal changes, climatic changes, how humans were adapting. And because it's the center of India, we are assuming that it was a major cultural and biological crossroads. So we should get a lot of diversity in technology and behaviors. What was the role of central India for overall South Asian human evolution? We have Nupur Tiwari's work. She's working on microliths, for example, at a landscape level, at the site level, trying to pinpoint when microliths emerge in central India, how old they are, exactly how the different technologies compare with other parts of India, and also to actually get ages. Again, as I keep emphasizing again and again, it's very important to know how old these assemblages are. Once this is pinpointed, then we can compare them with other dated sites in India and outside of India. So she's working at a very large scale and multidisciplinary work in central Narmada Valley of Madhya Pradesh. And this area is famous because this is a location where they found, with the Geological Survey of India found the only known hominin fossil, basically pre-Homo sapiens. So this geographically is very important. Scientifically, this area is very important. Then we have Vivek Singh. He's looking at slightly older evidence. He's looking at Acheulean adaptations, and he has found over 30 Paleolithic and vertebrate fossil sites in the study area. And he's also looking at use-wear analysis by collaborating with Dr. Cristina Lamori in Italy. So again, multidisciplinary work, looking at distribution of Acheulean sites, comparisons of early Acheulean sites and late Acheulean sites, and then of course looking at associated fossil evidence and trying to also get ages. Well, hopefully we can get ages for these older sites as well. And then doing use-wear to understand how the artifacts were used, looking at the modification on the edges, for example, microscopically, also doing it through experiments. So to better understand what the functions of these sites were. We can't assume that just because there are stone tools at a site, they were doing butchery. They were probably doing a range of things. It could be nut cracking, it could be scraping a hide to make leather, scraping wood, bark. Many, many functions were there in the past. Then we have Akash Rathore work. He's looking at technological variability in the South Asian Paleolithic, and basically he's comparing different assemblages from different sites, and then compare them to understand what the diversity was. For example, this includes assemblages kept in different museum collections, different departments, as well as our own lab. And he's also combining that with his own field work at specific locations to check the context, for example, to check artifact densities and see, and also use experimental archaeology and replication to look at the diversity within the lower Paleolithic. So sometimes they look like Acheulean, sometimes they don't look like Acheulean. So he's trying to look at how diverse these assemblages were and why. And also maybe if there was any impact of raw material, for example, or other typological attributes. So this is again multidisciplinary. And then Rajesh Pujari is looking at rock art. His main goal is looking at conservation. How can we better understand the rock art through pigments, through spatial distribution, through exposure to natural elements? How can we better understand methods to preserve the rock art? Because many of these paintings are fading fast. And some of them could be as old as 50,000 years, 60,000 years old. And once we get the pigments characterized, we can tell which pigments we can use for dating purposes, if they reveal any organic content. So this is Rajesh's main work. And also looking at why the paintings were done in the first place. What was the purpose behind them? What was the spatial distribution? Was there any relationships between the open air sites and then the different rock shelters? Are certain styles of paintings found only in certain regions, and why? And then Yazid Pardewala's work, he's looking at the transition from basically lower Paleolithic to middle Paleolithic. How did the middle Paleolithic emerge in South Asia? Because now it seems to be happening at the same time as Africa. It's not coming from Africa, it's happening independently at the same time from Africa. So he's trying to look at this in terms of why, when it happened, with the factors behind it, for example. Did it include sudden changes in populations, or was the change gradual? And then he's combining field work and lithic analysis in the lab, and his main study area is some parts of Madhya Pradesh. And again, this is a very important time period, because we have a lot of things happening. We have emergence of Homo sapiens, emergence of symbolic behavior, changes in technology. So again, middle Paleolithic kind of transforms our understanding of what it was to be human. And then Shashibhushan's work, he's looking at sites in Uttar Pradesh, in the Soan Valley. He has found over 50 Paleolithic, Microlithic, and fossil sites. He's got animal fossils and sediments from Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh to reconstruct the environment. How did these technologies change from Middle Paleolithic to Upper Paleolithic and then to Microlithic? What were the factors? What were the environmental factors? Very few such studies in India correlate environment and stone tools. So his is one of the first few studies like that. And also change in human behavior. It's not just change in technology, but change in human behavior and subsistence. And Ravindra Devra, he works in the Thar Desert. He has in fact found one of the richest and one of the most unique Acheulean and post-Acheulean sites and assemblages in the center of the Thar. And what is the significance of this is that hominins were in that area. Stone tools were found in the center of the Thar Desert. So it shows that at one time, it wasn't always a desert. It was very conducive for animal populations and for human populations. And it shows a unique adaptation to a unique geographic zone and unique environmental setup. So this is again, very, very interesting work coming from Rajasthan. And then recently we have new students joining as well. So people who have finished their coursework and are going to start their research soon. Anubhav Preet Kaur, she's planning to work in the Himalayas. Again, this area has not been surveyed very properly. Most work has been done in the Shivalics, but in interior zones, we don't know if hominins were there in the high altitude areas. So her goal is to find prehistoric sites that can be dated. Again, we need dates. And then looking at the Soinian technology, whether it was a distinct cultural entity or whether it was just adaptation by other hominins, what was the age of the Soinian, what is the landscape pattern of occurrence, and then using GIS, geographic information systems, to understand migration routes, integrating topography, vegetation, raw material sources like rocks, all these things to understand where hominins could have moved, and then possibly predict the locations of sites. And then we have Dressier's work. Dressier Mazumdar is working on basically a very unique topic of primate archaeology. She's looking at how macaques in the Nicobar Islands use tools. So her work is basically about factors affecting tool use, object manipulation, and social learning between the individuals in that macaque group, or multiple groups rather. So basically is primary archaeology, tool use, social learning, and then the method she's using is observational data in the field, in the Nicobar Islands, and basically looking at variation of tool use and even transmission of tool use based on sex, ecological factors, social hierarchy between the individuals in the group, and of course, differences between how the female macaques are using tools and the male macaques are using tools. And of course, anthropogenic factors affecting the transmission of technology. How are human populations in that area affecting monkey behavior? And also, how did adaptation of tools start in such an isolated zone? For example, it's an island. So did this tool use behavior was transmitted from the mainland, or did the monkeys innovate this behavior on the islands for the first time? These are various questions that can be asked, and something that cannot be answered easily. And then Badur Singh's work, he's a postdoc. He's working on basically experimental footprints, looking at how experimental footprints of modern humans can be used to interpret fossilized footprints, how we can get information on stature, sex, body mass index, and of course, how different footprints are made in different substrates or different soils. It could be mud, it could be sand, it could be hard ground. So how do these footprints get formed in the substrates? How would archaeologists interpret them? And what kind of information can we get out of them? This is now important because all these footprints we have go back 3.3 million years. And we have a range of footprints across the world of different ages. And this work has never been done in India, by the way. And then recently graduated BSMS student Shantanu Katiyar. He has done experimental work for his 5th year project of replicating hand axes and to understand how his own skill has changed over time from self-learning, not by watching only, but from teaching himself, looking at skill acquisition, speed of improvement, looking at changes in his technique, for example, changes in the morphology of the artifacts, and of course, combining that with qualitative and quantitative attributes. I would like to also highlight the work of former lab members. We have Dr. Salim Sheikh, who did work on rock art, Dr. Toshabanta Padan, who worked on the Narmada project, Bharti Jangra, who was a project assistant, and should be starting her PhD in Australia soon. And then Ravesh Lal, he was a postdoc on the Narmada project as well. And then we have former BSMS students who did their 5th year projects in our lab. So Prabh Simrandeep Kaur, Shantanu Katiyar, and Shubham Pal. And they have now gone on to their respective goals. So I'd like to thank a lot of people for allowing me this opportunity to present, but also IISER Mohali. I'd like to thank the Dean of Outreach and International Relations and his team, the Department of HSS, my lab members, then of course, governments of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, and a range of other people and colleagues who have actually contributed a lot and encouraged our work over the years. And of course, a lot of funding agencies that students have gotten, that I've gotten, and my researchers and collaborators have gotten also. And of course, my collaborating colleagues on different projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Parth. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic talk. We are now open for questions. What I request is, if you have questions, please use the raise hand option on Zoom, and we will take your questions one by one. So first question is from Rajeev Sikdar. Rajeev, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes. Hello.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. We can hear you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, yes, please ask.
I'm Rajesh Pujari from West Bengal. And I have worked on the region in southern Bengal on prehistory.
Okay.
So I have questions that is regional context influence on digging and how it will be applied in the Eastern Indian context? Digging or excavation?
Yeah, so regional context, I believe that you have to look at all the records from a regional perspective only, because India has a huge diversity of ecological, mosaics, for example. Thar Desert is there, the Ghats are there, Ganga Plains, Himalaya. So we need to look at how different populations were adapting regionally. We cannot use evidence from one area to interpret the entire pan-Indian scenario. There's different technologies in different areas, and different dates also in different areas. So different hominin groups adapting different cultures. So I suggest that I look at it from a regional perspective more than a pan-Indian perspective.
May I ask a question? I am Professor Ganju. I'm sorry, I don't have that icon here, so I am interrupting.
Yeah, go ahead, Professor Ganju.
Professor Parth, thank you very much for sort of freshening me up, because I am out of this archaeology for a long time. So I am going to ask you some questions. So please don't mind if they sound to be very preliminary in nature.
No, please, please.
One is about bipedalism. You said that it is 7 million years old.
Right.
Yeah, I recall a paper by Glenn Isaac where he had talked about the evolution of the bipedalism as a result of the change in the vegetation conditions from the to the open grasslands.
Yeah.
And he attributed that that because of open grassland areas, this all bipedalism started coming. So it is not necessarily because of the evolution in the man. It is primarily because there was a change in the vegetation conditions and man adapted to it, and bipedalism became a part of it.
Yes.
And I don't know, because you are giving a date of 7 million years, because if I recall whatever little I read about bipedalism, there was no such date of 7 million years. Maybe it has come up recently. So I will be very happy if you are able to share me some paper on that, which gives a date for bipedalism.
Sure. You can email me and I'll send you the information.
I'll send you.
But the evidence I'm talking about, 7 million years, is based on fossil evidence, the oldest hominins from Chad. So
no, but you are. You see, we get the earliest Australopithecus affarensis, where we get that footprints.
Yes.
That is not again 7 million years, because that is where
that is
we
3
start
million.
talking. Huh?
That's very young. The footprints are 3.3 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because that is what gives us the impression that the man started walking erect.
Yeah.
I don't know 7 million years. What is the evidence like?
So the difficulty is between, let's say, 8 million and 7 million. The process of bipedalism was a gradual process. So sometimes some species were walking on the ground for a few hours a day and living in the trees for a few hours a day. So they're doing both behaviors. So but sometimes anatomically it's difficult to identify.
But that can be confused with the knuckling also, because in knuckling also you have a few steps that the primate takes and then comes back onto the four legs.
Right.
So anyway, if you send me literature, I'll go through it. I'll refresh myself more on that.
Sure.
Now, I have one more question, sir, if you permit me.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Now, another thing is about the agriculture. You said that it started with the Neolithic, but we have the evidence from Tilwara and Bagor, late Mesolithic sites. They are not necessarily Neolithic sites. I think you are referring to the Neolithic site of that Mehergarh and all those things.
Yes, Mehergarh.
But I think, but we have the late Mesolithic sites like Tilwara, Bagor, where we have the evidences of agriculture adaptation by the man.
Yes, we do. We started to get very early evidences. Yes.
Yeah. So I think necessarily we cannot say that the Neolithic was the time when the agriculture started. I think we had some primitive evidences of agriculture even in the late Mesolithic or pre-Neolithic.
Terminal Pleistocene.
Terminal Pleistocene. That is pre-Neolithic also.
Yes.
Right. So your moderator is not allowing me beyond that. So I will stop it here. If there is a time, I'll ask you more questions.
Sure.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Next question is by Gopesh Jha. Gopesh, please unmute yourself and you can ask the question.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Gopesh.
Hello, Gopesh. Please go ahead.
Am I audible? Am I
Yes,
audible?
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for giving me a chance to. And first of all, I would like to compliment. It was a wonderful presentation and insightful talk. I would like to ask about, you talked about that convergence or culture convergence, like development and emergence of techno-complexes in different parts of the world, within the India also. Like I would like to explain the question with the one example of 385 or MIS 9. You have this Atiram Pakam.
Right.
But you also see you have same kind of assemblages coming from Kapthurin and Katupan in Africa, where you have blade coming from a core and flake assemblages. And we know, like in a core and mode 3 assemblages, you don't have any one way to produce the flake. You have multiple different arrays of way of producing the flakes. Do you think the resolution of lithic assessment at what we are doing at this point of time is sufficient to talk about these convergence or culture diffusion or descent or dispersal? Or should we need to go more deep into that to talk about on the attribute scale to talk about the techno-complexes and the diffusions? Because many of the arguments which has been made to talk about the convergence, actually we have similarities of them at same point of time at different places, and can be a result of multiple culture processes.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. We need more data, first of all. I'm going by current dates showing independent, possible independent occurrences. So because of the lack of evidence in the intermediate zones, we cannot say anything clearly. But for now, I believe that there is something going on in a parallel manner, sometimes independently, soon after, you can say the middle Acheulean. So once the late Acheulean products start emerging everywhere, I think there's something going on because there's mass production of artifacts. So there's isolation as well. There's no genetic evidence, there's no fossil evidence, and there's no technological evidence of populations moving everywhere. So whatever regions we have, with the long sequence, we cannot say much. So we do need more data.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
I hope that went through.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
From you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll ask some of the questions that have come in from YouTube. First question is from Supriyo, who says, how do we correlate any stone tool with a particular species?
Okay. Looking at stone tools before, let's say, 50,000, 60,000, it's not very easy. Before that time, different species were using different technologies. In Africa, for example, we have Acheulean occurring over a long time span. So we have, and even globally, we have Erectus using them. We have Heidelbergensis using them. The Neanderthals were using them, and maybe other species also, including the earliest Homo sapiens. So we have different species sometimes over time using the same technology. And we also have different technologies being used by the same species. So it depends on what they were doing at a regional level. We cannot identify anything clearly except maybe after 60,000, 50,000 in some zones, not everywhere, that this was made by Homo sapiens and this was made by somebody else. So it's very tricky. It's very tricky. The younger technologies is easy, but older technology is very tricky.
Second question is from Rajendra Singh Bhatti. He says, can you please name the site where you have found evidence within the Thar Desert of human occupation?
Actually, Thar Desert has several sites. So one area is the Dwana area, the 16 Ardoon, very lengthy sequence known since the 80s. And then we have Singhi Talav nearby. And then the site, the area that's been worked on by Ravindra is basically Neral River Basin. Neral.
The third question comes from Sajan Gupta, and he asks, how do we find an archaeological site?
Now, that depends on many things. If it's young, it's very easy to recognize. It could be ancient structures. It could be pottery on the ground. But if it's older, if it's Stone Age, for example, then we're looking for different type of evidence. We're looking for stone tools. We're looking for fossils, animal fossils, for example. So different types of sites will have different signatures, and you will use different methodologies to find them. For example, recently they used satellite images to find new Harappan sites in Pakistan without doing any field work. So plotting all the known sites and then using remote sensing and GIS and satellite imagery, they found new mounds of Harappan sites. But Stone Age sites, you need to get out there, look at where ancient sediments are exposed. And then you might have artifacts coming out, fossils coming out, various features. It depends on the nature of the site.
So next question is from one of our Zoom participants. This is Mukti. Mukti, please unmute yourself. You can ask the question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Actually, I am from Madhya Pradesh and currently studying anthropology from University of Delhi. And I am an undergraduate student and from third year. So actually, I have paleoanthropology and archaeology in my semester papers. And in paleoanthropology, I found there is some kind of confusion when I used to study paleo. According to dates and chronology, I could not find the proper sequence to read how to study paleo in a proper sequential way. I really found some confusions in that. So can you please guide me on that?
I don't understand the question exactly what you would like to me to answer, but if you can also email me. You can email me and contact me, and I can get in touch with you.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more question. Actually, I also want to pursue paleoanthropology and archaeology, and I don't know about the colleges in India. Like I came about the Deccan College, and you also are the alumni of that. So, how can I shape my career in archaeology and paleoanthropology?
Okay, I can send you information if you email me. I can send you the names of departments, names of people who you can contact, and then we can talk further.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
So
Thank you, Mukti.
Prasad, I'll give you my email address, which you can share with everybody, whoever is interested.
Sure. There's a question again from one of our YouTube viewers, Deepak Jha. Deepak asks, what is your view of anatomically modern humans in India? I'm assuming he's asking about the origins, earliest.
That's a very broad question, but all I can say at the moment is based on fossil evidence, based on genetics of modern populations, and looking at archaeology, the earliest evidence we have of entry at the moment is roughly 60,000. But the Middle Paleolithic assemblages, some of them from South India, other places in Thar Desert, suggest that maybe older Homo sapien populations were there. Now the question is whether those Homo sapien populations became extinct and there was a second wave coming in with microlithic technology, or there was only one wave. It's not clear, but I'm not a big proponent of using technology to identify species, as some people have been doing. I think we need fossil evidence, and I think we need a more robust data set, more excavations, more dates. We can say things.
Rajiv, who is our Zoom participant, he has his hands up. Rajiv, you have a question?
Yes, I have the
Please
questions
go
that,
ahead.
sir, the region, my region is located between Chudnagpur and.
Yes, Rajiv. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Rajiv, we couldn't hear you. Could you please repeat that?
Southern Bengal, between Chudnagpur and some tools are already, I have collected some tools, but repeatedly the question is coming that it is a high erosional activities are going and the context is not proper, primary context is not mentioned. But until that, many sites and tools are until explored repeatedly. So how we determine or how we analysis these types of sites, because there are many debates that these sites is not, total region is not primary region. But I see that last 60 years from geographical data, there have not any shifting of river valley. So I want help from you how we analysis or how we continue my further research in this region.
Okay, so you can email me for further interaction. But for now, I'll just say that you should focus on the condition of the tools, for example. Look at the local geology and stratigraphy. And if possible, you should collaborate with a geologist who is familiar with that area. Then you can pinpoint which sites are more primary, which sites are less primary, which sites are totally disturbed. Because sometimes you find fresh artifacts in a secondary context. And sometimes you find very rolled artifacts in fine-grained sediments. So it depends on the nature of each site. You have to treat each site differently and not the entire zone or area homogeneously. But please contact me and I can guide you further.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Yes,
We have a very interesting question from one of our very interesting viewers. This viewer is just 4 years old. Her name is Anushka, and she asks, how did you know that there were ostriches in India and where did they go?
Hi, Anushka. The ostrich evidence comes from eggshells. We have small fragments of eggshells. Let me just show you one of the specimens, in fact. Here's a fragment. This is an eggshell of an ostrich. So because we have many, many eggshells in India, all over India, and also Sri Lanka, we know that there were ostriches in India. And they became extinct because maybe climate change happened, or humans also interfered and took the eggs. So gradually the populations became smaller and then ostriches disappeared.
Thank you, Anushka. Hopefully that answers your question. For everyone, Dr. Parth's email ID has been shared on the chat, so you can contact Dr. Parth at that email ID. I see that there are no more hands up, and there are no more questions on
Professor Prasad, there is scope to
YouTube
accommodate one or two questions
also.
from my side?
Yes, Professor Ganju, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'm back again, Dr. Prasad.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parth, you were just introducing your students about their work, and I think I found one of your students working in Himalayas on the Paleolithics and all that.
Yes.
And I think you are aware that OTA and I have done some little work, a very basic work on,
Yes.
And you are aware of that little work, what we have done.
Yes.
My only question is, how do you identify those sites? Do you call them as a prehistoric sites or no?
The ones you found?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, based on the dates that you're getting very early, like almost Mesolithic, Neolithic boundary, you're getting very early dates in that area. So I would definitely call them prehistoric because there's no other diagnostic evidence showing younger influence. So at the moment, I would call them prehistoric. Yeah.
Because when you say prehistoric sites, the normal concept of a prehistoric site is that you should have an Acheulean or middle Paleolithic or some such, with the core technology or whatever technology you call it. And if you look at the tools that have been recovered from those sites, they are not very typical core technology or anything like that. So technologically we cannot say, but of course, because they are paleoliths, they are stones, and we are using them, so we can call them as a stone tools. And even
Yes.
age-wise, they are not comparable with, say, Julian or Middle Paleolithic, or even with the Upper Paleolithic also.
Right.
So maybe chronologically, maybe technologically, they are not the same, but they are tools because there are stones which are being used.
Yes.
I think that is the basis which forms this to be called as a Stone Age site or a Paleolithic site.
Right. Right.
Am I right? Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes. I agree with you. See, you can
And
separate the evidence based on you can call something a site, a proper prehistoric site. Or sometimes what happens is the prehistoric lifestyle continues, but the time
right,
changes.
right,
So
right,
two different things you can
right,
separate.
right. And plus, I think in Ladakh, the influence of man must have been at a very late stage because of the topographic conditions and climate and so on
Yes.
and so forth.
Yes.
Your student has just started, so I don't think he must have done any much of work in that area. But
No.
any reconnaissance you have carried out?
No, she's planning to start. Actually, she was supposed to do it this summer, explore different places, but because of COVID, she had to postpone her plans.
Right,
So
right.
she's going to start after monsoon, maybe. Hopefully, things will settle down.
Okay, so I'll be happy if she is able to find some more sites and I am able to, you are able to
And
share it with me.
and I'll ask her to contact you so we can give some geological
Anytime,
info.
anytime, anytime,
Thank you so
anytime.
much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We have a new question, Parth.
Yes.
This is from Mahua.
Yeah.
Mahua asked a much more basic question. She
Mhm.
says, why did you choose to become an archaeologist?
Good question. Uh, well, I could say that I did it because I like to travel. I like to see new places.
Indiana Jones?
It's a good excuse. It's a good excuse to spend time in nature continuously. But more importantly, I found this calling late in my life. Kind of explore other things. I was interested in, for example, in training horses in the beginning. I was interested in computer programming. I tried commerce or business, for example. I tried various things. And then I got into anthropology because I was always interested in National Geographic documentaries and everything. And when I got into anthropology, my department was focusing on human evolutionary studies in Africa, in the US. So from there, I got interested in Indian archaeology, and then finally I got into Indian prehistory. So it was just by chance, I explored different things and then got into this subject.
Okay, so there are two last questions. Okay, after this, I think we will wind up. These two are from our Zoom participants. First one is Priyanka Mandal. Priyanka, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. I'm from Calcutta. So, sir, I've been researching in Odisha. My PhD research topic is prehistoric settlement pattern. So, I just want to ask you. You mentioned primates are also using stone tool technology, but they did not evolve just like human. Can you please elaborate it?
Can you repeat that question, last part?
You mentioned in your talk that primates are also using stone tool technology.
Yes.
But they did not evolve just like human.
Right.
So can you please elaborate this topic just a bit?
Sure. So we have primates, assuming that the primates, so these monkeys and apes, were using tools before humans evolved, assuming that. Now, gradually, the chimpanzees separated from us. We became bipedal. They did not. So you have to think that there will be other factors also influencing evolution. It's not only tool use. So maybe, for example, tool use continued in other primates, but ecological changes did not happen, or there was no need for evolving further. For example, specific conditions were there in the past. They did not change. They continued living in that manner because the conditions, environmental conditions, and geography and ecology was stable. So maybe there were no factors that led to them being forced to change or adapt. So they continue as is.
Okay. Thank you,
The
sir.
last
Thank you.
question is from Disha. Disha, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. And so actually my question was,
Yeah.
if a site contains like more than one type of technology tools, like if it contains the lower Paleolithic as well as the middle Paleolithic one. Okay. So how can we, just on the basis of exploration, can give that site like what would we say that it's a lower Paleolithic site or a middle Paleolithic site? How can we bifurcate on that?
You have to see multiple factors. If you're serving, if it's a mixed site, there will be indications. For example, look at the typology, number one, right? Looking at the context. Then looking at the condition of the artifact. Sometimes you might get the fresh artifacts that are younger and the abraded or rolled artifacts that are older. To see if those older artifacts and younger artifacts are mixed together. So you can see individual specimen level, you can see at the site level, and then the regional geology and geomorphology you have to check. So there is a way you can pinpoint mixed assemblages, but you would call it as a mixed assemblage site. You would not call it, or a mixed technology site, for example. You would not call it just purely lower Paleolithic or lower/middle. You would just call it a simply mixed technology or mixed technological assemblage site.
Thank you, Parth. I guess that was the last question for the day. Thank you very much for a nice talk and a nice discussion. And I thank all our participants on Zoom and on YouTube. I see people have joined from around India and actually around the world. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. We hope to come back with a really interesting talk shortly. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.